How's it going, everyone? It is I, Anime Outlet, and this is part 3 of What If Deku Had Ultra Instinct. Also, before I start this What If off, I would like to thank True Beta for making the thumbnails for this series. Also, if you wish to become a channel member, it is only $2 a month and it offers a variety of different perks. If you want to know more about this, there should be a link in the description or a blue join button right next to the subscribe button. So now, let's begin. Days would end up passing since Izuku's failure during the Heroes vs. Villains assignment. Him, including his class, would end up walking into the classroom one morning to see Aizawa standing up at the front of the board with a picture pinned on it, as all of the students would sit down and would remain silent, as Aizawa would then begin speaking. So class, today we are going on a field trip, which I know most of you have already known. So, we are going to be either putting your hero costumes on or your PE uniforms on, and we are going to be going down to this area. As Aizawa would point to a certain area on the image, which just happened to be the bus drop-off zone at the UA campus. We are going to go there and get onto a bus that will then take us to an off-site location called the USJ. Aizawa would then point even farther away on the map from the UA campus to this big dome-looking thing. As the class would nod their heads, as many whispers would break out, just wondering what they were going to be doing at that certain place, and why did they have to go off of such a big campus that had so many different things to do, that why didn't UA have this thing? So they would all either put their hero costumes or PE uniforms on for heading onto the bus. As they would then get on, it would then just start to drive off to the USJ building. When they would arrive, they would all pile out of the bus to see the Hero 13, who would then lead them inside of the building, as 13 would then tell them how they are going to be going across the 5 different zones, and that is where they are just going to be testing and training the different places that they were doing, and to train their quirks and all of that. As all the students would nod their heads, and many of them would just marvel at how big and awesome this place looked, as Kirishima would then step up before yelling, "Whoa, they even have fake villains here too! This place is insane!" As 13 and Aizawa would look closely right down to where they saw Kirishima pointing to see a portal had opened, revealing many villains stepping out of it, as Izuku would also look towards it to sense many different high-level keys, as he would then see Shigaraki and then Anomu step out, as the portal would then close. And all of a sudden, a portal would open up beneath the students, as Izuku would end up dodging this by floating up using his flight, as many of his classmates would fall through, only leaving a couple of them, as Izuku would look towards Ida before yelling at Ida to escape through the doorway, as Ida would try to do so, but it would be blocked by Kurogiri. You really think you can escape? I can't have you doing that and possibly getting more heroes here. That just won't do. As Izuku would look over to see Ida just wondering what he should do, as Izuku would then move over to the side of the staircase before punching a hole right next to the door where Kurogiri's portal was not covering, as Izuku would then grab Ida before tossing him through the hole, as Ida would then sprint off towards the main UA campus. It wasn't too far away, as the bus had to drive quite slowly, not having a highway to travel on, so it was about maybe a 30-minute sprint there, which Ida could manage quite well with his quirk. So Izuku would look over towards Kurogiri to see he had then dispersed after seeing him just completely just not disregard him at all and throw Ida through a hole, as Kurogiri would then go back to where Shigaraki and Anomu were. However, Izuku would look down to see 13 standing there wondering what to do, as Aizawa had already jumped down the stairs and had started to fight the villains, as 13 would then do the exact same, as Aizawa and 13, with their combined efforts, were easily able to defeat all of the villains there. As Izuku would then look down to see Shigaraki smiling before pointing his finger out towards both Aizawa and 13, and the big purple bird-looking thing that had the highest key there would then sprint right at just Aizawa and 13. As Izuku would see this and would know that Aizawa and them were both going to die if the Nomu's attack would end up landing, so Izuku would then run down and appear right before both Aizawa and 13 and would block the Nomu's attack. As Izuku would then wince in pain, feeling just how hard it was, as he would look over towards the Nomu, as Izuku would then throw a punch that would land right up against the Nomu's stomach, causing a crater to be sent flying backwards through the Nomu. However, it did nothing to the Nomu at all. However, behind it, it looked like a massive boulder had just been flying down on the ground, making a small cylinder-shaped crater. So Izuku would look over towards the Nomu, who had now started to power up a punch once again, going for a punch against Izuku, who had blocked it once again. Izuku would look over towards Aizawa and 13 and would yell for them to get out of there and go try to save the rest of his classmates. He'll have to take care of this from here. Aizawa would go, but 13, not wanting to leave a child there, would take a little more convincing, as Aizawa had to grab her hand and just force her to come with him, as he also knew that Izuku, if he wasn't able to do this, she was most likely going to die. As Aizawa had seen the power Izuku has, he was there when Izuku completely obliterated the Nomu, or not the Nomu, the zero-pointer, and so he knows that Izuku probably is stronger than all of the teachers there, maybe even All Might. So Izuku, struggling to hold down the Nomu's attack, as Izuku would release his hand, causing the Nomu to be sent flying back upwards to around 10 feet. As the Nomu would land on its 2 feet, and would then start to power up a ki attack, throwing it right at Izuku, as his eyes would widen in shock. So it appears my guess was right. This damn thing knows how to use ki. But how the hell can it? I haven't sensed a ton of ki users here at all. There's possibly only a few. What were the odds that I ran into one that had such power? As Izuku would end up blocking the Nomu's attack before throwing another punch right at the Nomu, who was easily able to dodge this. As Izuku would look over towards Shigaraki, who had pointed at 13 and Aizawa. Are you the beholder or master of this thing? As Shigaraki would then start to laugh. Oh, are you wondering how I can use ki? Well, no matter. We were able to implant ki within it somehow. Don't ask me. The doctor that we know was able to do it, and he's making hundreds more just like this, but thousands times as strong. As Izuku's eyes would once again widen in shock, just, what? Izuku would say, yup. All this hero world is going to end, and the villains are gonna rise up once and for all. As Izuku would smile, knowing that he wasn't going to let that happen on his watch, as Izuku would put his hand forward, stopping the Nomu from coming forward, as Izuku would then start to power up a ki attack in his one hand, as he would toss it right at the Nomu, implanting it in the Nomu's stomach, as the Nomu would then screech out in pain, as the ki blast had went right through the Nomu and went right into the Nomu's internal organs and had started to compress itself, as the organs would then just explode within the Nomu, as the body of the Nomu would drop down to the floor. However, within seconds, the Nomu was able to pick itself back up because of its regeneration quirk. You're not going to be able to defeat that Nomu with such ease, you realize. This Nomu has multiple quirks, one of those being a regeneration quirk. You'd probably have to completely vaporize this thing to be able to defeat it. As Izuku would then smile before laughing towards Shigaraki. Thanks for telling me its weakness. This should be a lot easier now. As Shigaraki would then realize his mistake before stomping on the ground and scratching his neck in pain. Why? How could he be so blind and stupid to just tell the enemy the answer so easily? So Izuku would jump back, flying into the air, before putting his hands down to his side and preparing the signature attack of Roshi, who had taught him the Kamehameha wave. As Izuku would start to call out the Kame, as Izuku would then finish this before yelling, "Ah!" just sending a massive ki beam straight towards the Nomu. As the Nomu would look on just in complete shock, and just would freeze. It was numb, as it couldn't move at all, as Izuku would then just his ki blast or his Kamehameha wave completely just took over this Nomu's body, as it would completely vaporize it, just with no speck of dust remaining. As Izuku would smile knowing he had defeated the Nomu, as Izuku would drop down to the ground, as Shigaraki would start to laugh. It took you a while to defeat that Nomu, but don't fret. Just like I said, there's thousands more on its way. There's gonna be a massive attack on you UA school students. Along with the heroes, you're all gonna die. I will make sure. It's my life's work after all. As Shigaraki would then look over towards Kurogiri before asking him to open up a portal. As Kurogiri would do this, and he would then hop through the portal, leaving all of the other villains there to just try and defeat 13 and Aizawa and the rest of the students. 30 minutes would end up passing as All Might, along with many other of the UA staff and just heroes on staff, would end up busting through the doors to see Izuku had just started running around and saving many of the students there, many of the weaker ones, of course, as Izuku had just brought them all back to the fountain where they were all sitting, just contemplating what had happened. None of them were allowed to bring their phones into school, so they were kind of confused on what to do, as they weren't sure if they should exit the USJ building, as Aizawa had told them that Ida had left to go get reinforcements, since Izuku had told them that, and that they should be fine. So the heroes would walk down the stairs, seeing many bodies of the unconscious villains there, who, if they woke up, they would easily be taken care of by one of the 3 people that were the strongest there. Well, it would basically be taken care of by anyone who was closest to them. So they would all walk down asking what happened, as Aizawa would tell them how there was an attack at UA and they just need to get everyone safe and out of here, while also calling the police and getting many of the villains there in custody. The heroes would nod their heads as a couple days would end up passing, as Nezu had called off school for almost a month. Izuku would end up walking into the building as he had requested a meeting with Nezu. Izuku would sit down before looking right at Nezu. Nezu, we have a problem here. What do you mean, Izuku? Nezu would ask. You know about ki, don't you? Yes, I've read about it in books. It's something you use, I believe. You're correct, Nezu, and I believe there's gonna be a war on our hands. A war? What do you mean by that? The villains that attacked us at the USJ, they knew how to use ki, and the person that could control the bird Nomu-looking thing, as he called it, it could use massive amounts of ki, and also had quirks. And he said that they implanted ki within it, and I'm guessing they could also do the same with quirks too. He also said that they were gonna make thousands more, even powerful than that. So I think we need to start gathering an army. An army? I know how powerful ki is. I've seen what you can do. And how are we gonna find something like that? I've never seen a ki user before you. And the thing you're describing, not even All Might could defeat. So how are we gonna gather people that could defeat these? Izuku would smile knowing he had an answer. We're gonna have to perform a test. We're gonna need 50% quirkless people, and then 50% people with quirks, preferably students here at UA, and other students at other high schools. Remember, 50% quirkless and 50% with quirks. The 50% with quirks needs to be 25 with smaller, not very powerful quirks, and 25 with very powerful quirks, say like Bakugo's explosions. Nezu would nod his head before gathering the classes up. He would use many of the quirk people from Class 1A and Class 1B, and would then gather kids with other smaller quirks from other places. He would also go out and just try to look for quirkless students, as he would then end up gathering them. However, this would take around 2 weeks, and Izuku would end up requesting all of the UA heroes or just the heroes or teachers there, to end up meeting him out on the field the day after Izuku's meeting, as Nezu had ended up scheduling all of the heroes to show up there, as Izuku would then look over towards them. So, I presume you've heard what Nezu has told you, how there is going to be a war. We're gonna probably have to teach people how to use ki. We only have 2 weeks to find those people. So, I'm gonna have 2 weeks to train you all, and then you all are gonna have 2 weeks to train the people we end up finding. So, all of the teachers would end up nodding as they would ask Izuku in confusion, but we're the teachers here. We're supposed to be the strongest here. How come a kid can teach us? As Izuku would tell them about all what ki is and how many people aren't able to control it, and he's going to try to teach you all how to control it, as Izuku would end up just getting out a clipboard before telling them how to focus their just energy into a small tiny ki ball. Many of them would learn quite quick and would end up being asked to throw it at Izuku's arm, as it would land, as Izuku would feel almost no pain from someone, say, like Midnight, who had a very strong quirk, as she was the first person to end up getting it right. However, it had done no damage at all. As Izuku would then ask someone like I saw who did that, who took a little bit more time and would throw it, and would see that it did not very much damage, but it still did more than Midnight, as he would then go up to All Might and ask All Might to throw his Ki Blast, as All Might's Ki Blast was visibly bigger than all of the rest. Throwing it at Izuku, it would land, as Izuku would feel a bit of pain. He would think. So, my first guess is that people with stronger quirks are much faster at learning it since they already have a power, but it's a lot weaker. People with lesser quirks take a little bit more time, but it still doesn't take a lot of damage. However, people that are quirkless, it takes a lot longer time but does a lot more damage. As All Might would look over at Izuku, what do you mean? Izuku would then tell All Might how Nezu told him you were quirkless and that it makes sense, how you were able to do the most as someone who was quirkless, as All Might would nod his head, wondering why Nezu would even tell someone who is still somewhat untrustworthy just about all his life backstory. So Izuku would end up going to Nezu and would end up asking Nezu if they can just do a smaller test with only 10 people, as they don't need all the 100 anymore, but they could possibly keep the quirkless people. After the test, Izuku was right. The quirkless took longer to learn, but were able to do it a lot better. So Izuku would ask for Nezu to get most of the quirkless population, or the young quirkless population, to just come out to UA, as they were going to be starting training with him and All Might there. So Nezu would nod his head before contacting them. And that's where I'm going to leave this What If off, everyone. I hope you all did enjoy. I know I said Kaioken Part 5, I believe, was coming out today, but I saw how well or how much you guys liked this series, and I decided to give you a third video in a row. Part 5 of Kaioken should be coming out tomorrow, and I might be putting out part 4 of this on Wednesday or Thursday. I still have to decide on that. Remember, I would like to thank True Beta for making the thumbnails for this series, and if you are interested in becoming a member, it's only $2 per month, and there is a ton of perks that come with it, and I might even add some more. And if you're wondering how to join, there should be a join button next to the subscribe button, or there should be a link down in the description that has tons of just details on what the memberships that I've created are. I thank you all for watching once again, and goodbye.